Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Mr. West. I'm going to talk to you today about narration. That's recounting events. I want to talk about this because it's very important, and all of this information has actually been adapted or taken directly from Successful College Writing, 5th edition by Kathleen T. McWhorter. Just putting this together as a kind of primer to that chapter. So, what is narration? A narrative relates a series of events, real or imaginary, in an organized sequence. And a narrative is a story, but it's a story that makes a point. So, if you would like to visit the link that is available at the top of this page, you could actually read the mentor text called Right Place, Wrong Face by Alton Fitzgerald White before continuing with the rest of this presentation. All right, so the characteristics of a narrative are that narratives make a point. Narratives convey action and detail. They present a conflict and create tension. They use a sequence of events, so things are in a specific order. Narratives use dialogue, and they're told from a particular point of view. So we're going to go a little deeper into each of those subpoints. Narratives make a point. We don't usually write narratives simply to tell a story. And as a matter of fact, the personal statements that we're creating in my class this semester need to make that point. This will help our readers, and our audience for this particular essay is college admission specialists and employers, to make them understand or help them to understand who we are and where we're coming from. Narratives also convey action and detail, so if we can engage our readers, then our story will make an impact. Although brief, our personal statements will use an anecdote that propels the story forward with appropriate action, as well as details that bring the story to life. So if you were to look at that image on the left, what kind of action and details could you include? I might want to talk about the different shades or hues of blue and green, the sea foam, the way that might sound, the splashing noise, those rocks or coral that are at the bottom. All those are details that would be important and can bring the narrative to life. I have some images here about conflict and tension. All right, so narratives present a conflict and they create tension. A conflict is a struggle, question, or problem, and it works towards resolution. Tension is the suspense created as the story unfolds, and it makes readers wonder how it will be resolved. And the climax is the point of greatest action right before the conflict is resolved. So we always need to have that conflict. Tension is what propels that action forward, and you need a story with both, or else people are going to wonder why you're telling it, especially in the context of a personal statement. So climax can also be seen as the highest point of action in a story or narrative. Usually it's followed directly by the resolution. Narratives use a sequence of events. So in a personal statement or college essay, you have a limited amount of time and space, so you want to ensure your personal anecdote has events ordered in a way that makes sense. The mentor text above that we read, the right place, wrong face, uses chronological order, but you're welcome to move around the order of events, especially if it helps you to tell your story in an interesting way while still making a point. So play with order using the following techniques. You can use flashback, where you return readers to events that already took place in the past, or you can use foreshadowing, that are hints or clues to readers about events in the future. Narratives use dialogue as well. So dialogue can be used to dramatize the action, emphasize the conflict, reveal personalities of characters in narrative, or even reveal the motives of characters. Now, as you'll see, I added a narrative that I crafted on my own at the bottom of this presentation, but I kind of overuse dialogue to the point of it's near short story quality. And if I were to use this for a personal statement, I definitely want to edit some of that out. A couple uses of genuine dialogue are best. Don't overdo it. So here's a little pun for you. Dialogue should sound natural, not forced. Anyway, dialogue should sound natural, not forced or formal. So keep that in mind as well, and I'll give you some pointers for that, especially if you're using non-contracted words, saying things like "do not," "I did not do that." We don't really talk like that. You'd say, "I didn't do that." "I don't wanna," not "I do not want to." Right. So just think about that as you're creating dialogue. Also, narratives are told from a particular point of view. So stories are generally told in first person or third person. First person is going to be using that I. Third person uses he, she, they, etc., and it allows a little more distance between the writer and subject. There are advantages and disadvantages of using both of these. Um, One advantage of first person is that you're able to use your own unique point of view, and that helps to express your emotions and convey that personal connection with your readers. A disadvantage is you can't really share the perspectives of others. You're just speculating, basically. Third person, one of the advantages is that you have more distance from the action. There's a broader and more objective perspective. And the disadvantage is there's a less personal connection to the topic. For this essay, you definitely want to use first person. Second person is one we don't talk about that much, and I'm not including it on here, but it's when you use you a lot. So that's going to be more in how-tos. I've actually been using second person quite a bit in this presentation to tell you how to craft your essay. However, a lot of times when using second person, we shift between first and second because I still need to use my personality to convey something to you. We is also part of second person. All right. Integrating a narrative into an essay is vital. So you need to make your story fit into an essay structure, and that can be challenging for some readers, especially for a personal statement kind of essay, because sometimes your readers might be like, what is the point of this story? So you definitely don't want to go off the rails and turn it into a full-fledged story. Still going to need an introduction and a conclusion. The body will contain the personal narrative, and then the conclusion will offer a resolution and how that's going to apply to your future goals and the value that you learn from that experience. So be sure your story illustrates a point accurately and well. It must support your thesis. In a narrative, your thesis can come at the very end. Keep the narrative short. Introduce the story with a transition that indicates you're about to shift into narrative in order to make your point. Use descriptive language, dialogue, and action in your narrative. So I'm going to use the pre-writing assignments that we completed during class meeting 2, and I have actually created an example that integrates one item from the Museum of You handout along with one of my top 3 values from my core values handout. You can catch those on Google Classroom or even in Blackboard, and I'm going to see about posting those to this YouTube page. They are not mine. I got them from a consultant who taught us this exercise, and it's from Andrew Hollinger and Associates Consultants. So they're an educational consulting firm from here in the Rio Grande Valley. So notice how in this narrative, I make a point that goes simply beyond the story of telling something that happened when I was a kid. So brace yourselves for my magnificent storytelling here. As I sit here in my classroom, I often think about my own experiences as a student and how those experiences shaped me into the person I am today. Very short and sweet introduction. When I was in elementary school, I was a carefree kid. I enjoyed playing outside with my friends and socializing, and video games. I was the kind of person who could and would talk to anybody. Making other people laugh was one of my strengths. That and getting good grades in school. My teacher was a nice person and we got along well. Sometimes my teacher would tell me things like, "Hey Joel, settle down," but she always said it with a big smile, so I thought nothing of it. Each 6 weeks on report card day, we were handed a sealed envelope that was to be opened by our parents. They were supposed to look over our grades and sign the report card on the back. This had happened for several years at this point, and there was no reason for me to worry, or so I thought. My parents were teachers, and I knew my dad would often discuss how students who misbehaved simply needed some positive reinforcement. At that age, I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but I knew he cared about his students. That evening, I handed my dad my report card, just like I had done every 6 weeks for years. As I grabbed an apple to munch on, I watched my dad pull out my report card and look it over with a satisfied smile, until he looked at my conduct grade. He pointed at the N for needs improvement. "What is this all about?" I stammered, I don't know. Ms. V always acts like everything is fine. I don't talk that much." "Follow me," my dad said with an upset look on his face. We walked outside to the family car. "Get in." "Where are we going?" "You'll see." We arrived at the mall and I wondered what on earth was going on. Was my dad going to reward me with a gift? I was totally confused. Before we walked inside, my dad popped the trunk open. "Grab that box out of the trunk, will you?"